What's up, guys? It's Memorial Day, and we are definitely in the studio and not at home.
Yeah, we're not wearing the same things we were on Wednesday.
Nope,
not at all.
in the slightest. I probably was. I'm pretty bad at that. And we are
same thing every day.
Yeah, we're definitely. There's no reason that we're not talking about like news that specifically dropped on Monday, such as
Solo.
Yeah,
It
definitely.
made so much money.
Or
Yeah.
not enough money.
Or not
You
enough.
be the judge.
It made an amount of money commensurate to the story that we will be covering tomorrow. We have to process it.
The Chewbacca shocker had me shook or not at all.
Yep.
And joining us for the first time on camera, I just wanted to kind of leave him sitting quietly at the table for as long as possible. Max
Hi, guys.
Dionne, our producer, you guys.
Yeah.
Hey.
I just gotta say, I loved Solo.
Yeah.
I loved it. I loved the parts where they were in space and flying around, and
Yeah. I enjoyed the Millennium Falcon.
that was one of my favorite parts.
Yep. Guys, you don't understand how many people are sick or missing until we asked Max to join us on camera.
Yeah. But you know what? I'm trying to choose to have fun here.
Choose to have fun.
Oh, but with that
loving
shirt,
spirit.
I'm going to choose to have fun. Hey, guys, we're not just talking hot Solo news today. Our pre-tape topic today, stuff you should watch on streaming. Stuff
Tough
we
to
watch.
navigate.
Yeah.
Those
tough to
streaming
navigate.
services. There's
Yeah.
a lot out there.
We're here to help.
We're here to help.
We're
We
here
are.
to. We're
We
here
have
to.
a lot of helpful advice.
Yeah, we're gonna Gandalf you through Mirkwood, by which we're gonna drop you off at the edge of the forest and leave. Starting with Dan Murrell. Dan,
Sure.
what you got for him?
Most people have the Netflix.
I've heard of it. Yep.
I'm across streaming services with my recommendation, but I think most people have Netflix. So I am recommending a movie that came out back in 2016 to great critical acclaim. It is a very small movie called Don't Think Twice.
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
Great film.
It is a movie about a improv troupe.
Wait, don't click away.
Yes, exactly. That is the worst poster, by the way, for like that movie. That poster does not sell what this movie is.
No, not in the slightest.
It is
really
a poster
bad.
about an improv troupe, and one of them gets a big break, and it's sort of a very bittersweet look at how success can affect a group of people when one person gets it and the other people don't. And it is very deep. It is full of a lot of raw emotion. It's also, though, funny and sweet. It is an emotional roller coaster. You have highs and lows, but I think it's just a really kind of affecting portrait of, it's set in this kind of improv community, which could really go up its own butthole pretty quick.
Yeah.
And you just be lost in a sea of like, what? But they keep it broad enough so that you can it's really about this group of people. And it's great cast. I think it was on my top 10 list the year that it came out. Really kind of a smaller movie that made a bit of a pop in the limited release that it got. But it's on Netflix now. You can go watch it right now. And I recommend it. Don't think twice.
Okay, we're off to the races because that is a solid first recommendation. Max, can you top it? It's not a competition, actually.
Okay, well, my first pick is also on Netflix. Billy said they all had to be on Netflix. So
None of mine are.
Oh, great. All right, then we're all across the board. So I, as you guys know, my favorite day of the week is when we get pizza brought in because I love to eat.
Pizza Tuesdays,
Yes.
baby.
It's
So
Tuesdays, yeah.
there's this show on Netflix called Ugly Delicious. I don't know if you've heard of it.
It's a good
It's
show.
hosted by David Chang, and he's the guy who is famous for opening Momofuku in New York, and now he has this empire. There's one in Vegas, there's one in Los Angeles where we are. And basically each episode he examines a kind of food and then travels around the world to try to find the best version of that food, but then also examines like its cultural impact and like digs a little bit deeper. So when he's talking about fried rice, he's talking about like how the immigrant experience of Chinese people coming to America and then having to cook this weird version of their food for Americans that Americans like better, but that's not actually Chinese and all this stuff. But then it's also, he has like comedians like Aziz Ansari's on, and there's a great episode where is a debate between dumplings and ravioli to see, because they're both like stuffed pasta, see which is better, and like Nick Kroll judges it. So it's great if you like food and if you like comedy.
Yeah, he's, I think, even by his own admission, a little bit of an asshole.
Yeah, my wife hates him.
And yet,
But I
the
think
show's
the show-
super interesting because there's so much like mixed media in it and like animated interludes, and he's talking to like food critics and like fine dining, and then he makes like the greatest pizza chef in New York eat Domino's and like be honest about it. So he's it's not just like a like a snobby food tour, or
Right.
like a Guy Fieri, who I love and represent with my whole heart.
Heck yeah.
It's somewhere in between, or it goes for high and low culture, so
Yeah.
it's pretty cool.
You have to get past he's a little obnoxious, but I think the show is really well produced.
Like in a David Brent sort of way.
Yeah, he's just like I think chefs
kind
are used to giving orders and having them be
Gotcha.
like
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
obeyed. They're like little military captains,
Yeah.
and he's
Yeah.
just like
You should
he's
be-
just like speaks with so much confidence that it's like, wow.
Okay.
Okay.
Right on. Okay, yeah, right on. Spencer, what do you got for us?
All right. We're smashing the Netflix dominance because it's not the only streaming service out there.
not.
There's plenty, including the Hulu. And on the Hulu, they have this show actually used to be on Netflix, but Hulu has every episode of Peep Show. Peep Show is the funniest, I would say, in my top 5, maybe top 3 comedies of all time.
Okay.
It actually relies a little bit on a gimmick more in the first season than it does over its like 9-season run, which is it's 2 guys, the roommates. Like one's kind of like a bohemian a guy who likes to mess around. The other's really uptight and into history and the square and stuff like that. But it goes into their own point of view, and you hear their inner thoughts. And then it'll like switch from one to the other. And they use that for a lot of the jokes at first, which can get annoying. But if you stick with it, this is just the best. It's like The Office meets Curb Your Enthusiasm meets those two. It's those
Right
two.
on. Okay.
It's those 2 things. I know comedy premises are usually pretty thin and dumb, and this one is. It's like they're mismatched roommates.
Uh-oh.
But yeah, how are they going to get along? They share a flat.
Wasn't one of the guys in like a sketch show, a British sketch show?
They have
It's
their
really
own
funny?
sketch show called The Mitchell and Webb
Yes,
Look.
that's
Mitchell and
and
Webb Look.
That is
Number one. That's number Wang.
That's
number
number Wang.
That's
Exactly.
one of my favorite sketches of all
Yes.
time. Wanganum.
That's Wanganum. So
Great, yeah.
that actually, this show got me into that show.
Yeah.
These guys, I think, are comedic geniuses. They haven't quite made it across the pond, and I think they tried to do an American version. Skip it. This is one of the top 5 comedies of all time. Give it
Right
a
on.
watch.
That's high praise.
Yeah.
From Spencer J. Gilbert. I'm going back to Netflix to talk about a show that I don't shut up about around these guys, so I'm very excited to make them listen to it again on camera. It's a show called Terrace House.
Oh, God, not
Aloha
again.
State. Yeah, there it is. Okay, so one of the cool things about Netflix is as they globalize, there's so much just weird stuff from across the planet that you now get to watch on Netflix, just really weird shows. And this one is basically Japanese real world. It's 6 strangers living in a house, and they just like hit record basically. But they all have like goals, like life goals and stuff, and things they're trying to achieve while they're there. And everyone's very like calm and nice to each other for the most part.
They speak Japanese.
Yeah, they speak Japanese. It's in subtitles. And then they cut to a panel, throughout the show, they cut to a panel of Japanese comedians who comment on the show.
Sorry, it's just the 17th time you told me about Terrace
I know.
House.
No, I know. I see your eyes glazing over, but they don't know.
The first time I promised to watch it, Joe.
I know.
I'll watch
I know.
Terrace House.
So there's a couple of them on Netflix. You got to start with Aloha State, where they go to Hawaii. It's a great season. I don't know. It's really fun if you're looking for something to just watch to unwind or get high to. I cannot recommend getting unwinding to Terrace House, Aloha State enough. Dan, what's your second pick?
I'm going to hop over to Amazon Prime.
Ooh, okay.
If you are an Amazon Prime member, this movie is included with Prime, which means you can watch it right now. It's not an under the radar choice, but it's a movie that Martin Scorsese made in 2011 called Hugo.
Oh.
And
It's a great movie.
It's a really cute, fun movie. The only thing that holds it back was it was made in the post-Avatar era of the 3D event film. So watching it at home, it looks a little dated in the sense of like you could tell that they made it for that like new 3D technology. So there's parts of it that look a little like off, but the story is so good. It's about this little boy who lives in a train station, and he kind of goes on this whimsical adventure, and it crosses over with a real life figure named Georges Méliès, who was one of the Méliès brothers who made A Voyage to the Moon, which is one of the most important early movies ever made, and Ben Kingsley plays him, and it's this kind of historical fiction story about this automaton and these inventions, and it's just very kind of whimsical, and it's not something that you would, when you see from Martin Scorsese, it's not something that you would anticipate. It is aimed at kids, but I think especially if you love movies, it's like this love letter to the early part of cinema and how important it is to remember the magic and the innovation, and it's just a very kind of a charming kids movie that also strangely intersects with cinematic history in a really interesting way. So, like I said, it was a big deal. It was a big release. It's not an indie film, but it's not a movie that I hear a lot of people talking about anymore. So if you haven't seen Hugo, and especially if you are a fan of movies in general and film history, I didn't see that aspect coming when I was watching it the first time. So I recommend that very much. And even if you're not into movies, it's just kind of a fun little adventure. I mean, Sacha Baron Cohen's in it, and where there's a lot of running around and hijinks, and again, not what you would expect
from Scorsese.
From Martin Scorsese.
Yeah, that movie's a really nice surprise.
Really enjoyable movie.
I'll have to check it out again. I saw it in theaters, and I thought the 3D was actually pretty cool back then. So I'd be curious
I'm
to
sure
see.
the 3D was cool in theaters, but watching it at home, you can tell that there were some sequences that they were designed.
A lot of slow zooms through clockwork.
Exactly.
And you're like, well, okay.
Exactly.
Right. Max, where are we going next?
Sticking with Netflix, true crime is really hot right now. I don't know if anyone's been watching Evil Genius, but that's not my
told I
recommendation.
should, yeah.
It's not my recommendation. It is great. But if you haven't seen American Vandal,
Yep.
It's on my list.
Okay, it's incredible. It's basically like a mockumentary of these like true crime things, and it starts off with the mystery is a bunch of cars in the parking lot got vandalized by this guy drew a bunch of dicks on them, or somebody drew a bunch of dicks on them. But which guy? And so like it feels like an SNL sketch at first, and then it just sucks you in, and it becomes like real, and you're like, I want to know who drew the dicks. I need to know, and it's like there's like pathos, and it's like. It's really well done.
Peabody Award?
It won something.
No, I'm serious. Like that's what put it on my radar. It said like
it's
Peabody Award winning American. Like,
really? I know that.
That's what put it on my
It's
list.
amazingly well done.
Well,
like it's
a perfect parody of Making a Murderer or The Jinx or all those other true crime.
Well,
things.
it does a really good job of like really lampooning in on how those shows have been like presented to us.
Yeah.
Because like they're really manipulative in how they like make us care and what they make us think and the directions they take us in.
All those tropes really well.
Yeah, on something completely low stakes. It's like I think you said it best, SNL sketch, but then you're like you're like this. There's no way this has legs at all, and then it just keeps going and building and going deeper and deeper. Super fun.
I was so surprised that I was like, after the second episode, I'm like, I just got to keep watching this. Like,
Yep. No, it's super good. Spencer, top it. It's in a competition now.
All right. Well, I'll give you my number 2 Diet Coke refreshing pick of the week.
This episode is brought to you by Soda. Soda. It'll rot your guts out.
soda.
You don't have the graphic, Billy? Okay, fine. My second biggest super chill. There it is.
Nice.
Guys,
What is that?
the Rick and Morty's pretty popular these days.
Oh, yeah.
This is the not the great granddaddy because it's only a few years old. Or am I just old and it's 10 years old?
Dude.
I don't know anymore.
With Adult Swim shows, like they're in and out so quick. This might as well
this
be
had
the
a
Great
couple
Granddaddy.
seasons, between 2 and 4 seasons, and it is very Rick and Morty. This is like an insane, whimsical prison warden and his like very worried, harried underling named Jared. And it's clearly from looking at him, he's like a Willy Wonka, but for torture and punishment. But he's also like really happy about everything and has this just insane lightness to it, and the animation style, like, it will melt your brain. Like, talking about drugs, man. You throw super gel on, and it's so vibrant. It's like Adventure Time meets Rick and Morty. Like, it's so childlike and wondrous, and yet there's like a lot of dark humor and a lot of intelligence and a lot of like really effed up episode premises. Every single episode opens with like the same convict escaping and being reapprehended in some horrific way. It's kind of like, I'll add another cartoon, Aeon Flux. Aeon Flux, Adventure Time, Rick and Morty. That's if you're between the ages of 14 and 50, you're gonna like this.
Yeah, that's a weird mix of shows. You just elevator pitch this on. Yeah, no, that is talk about drugs on that one as well.
Hulu, by the way, if I didn't say that.
Okay, yeah. Sticking with Hulu. I like the brand loyalty over here. Yeah, it's good.
I'll keep it in the family.
So I started with ways to unwind. Here's a way to stay cheery. Watch Queer Eye on Netflix.
Oh, it's so good.
Oh.
It's the sweetest show in the world. So this was an old show that was on Bravo. They remade it with a new cast of sweet boys, and it's just a really kind and positive show. Max, I know you've watched it.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys have watched it yet.
I watched one episode and I was like, wow, this is some heavy stuff. Like,
there
I'd find
too
it
much
hard to
emotion for you?
marathon.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah.
It does. Yeah, it because it gets into a lot of just like deconstructing like masculinity.
They're not
and-
teaching them just how to do their hair anymore. They're like breaking down their
Yeah, like
their whole
yeah.
spirit.
Yeah,
Every episode
legit.
has
It's-
like a real like moment where they comment on society or something that's like really heavy. And
Yeah.
if you watch it when you're hungover, you will cry.
Yeah.
I cried. I'm not gonna tell you what
it's
to do.
but it's super fun. It's also fun to watch how unbalanced I think the crew sort of is, because like one of the guys is like, I redesigned your whole house in a weekend, and then another guy's like, here's how you cut an avocado.
I did notice that. They do redo his whole house. The other guy's like, guacamole.
Yeah,
It's avocado
getting a
and
lot of
lime.
but if the main selling point is the guy that does Gay of Thrones on Funny or Die, a fellow Emmy nominee with us, is one of the boys, and
Good sneak
just
that
a
in
little.
there.
You dropped it, yeah.
I'm proud of it. Darn it. But he's absolutely hilarious. And so after you watch Queer Eye, watch a little binge through Game of Thrones real quick. It might be better than Game of Thrones. I don't know. I think I actually like it more than the show.
Shorter.
Definitely shorter. Definitely shorter. Dan?
My last one is kind of it's a TV show, but you could watch all of them today if you want to, because it's 14 episodes, but they're all 24-minute long episodes, and it's an origin story for one of my favorite directors. Again, a lot of you probably heard of it. It's called Spaced. It's on Hulu. All of
Yeah.
it's on Hulu. It's directed by Edgar Wright. It's got Simon Pegg and Nick Frost in it, who you know from Shaun of the Dead and Hot Fuzz and The World's End, and a lot of other faces that you'll recognize from his movies all pop up in it. And it was made in like 1999, 2000. So there are definitely some things that are dated. There's some extended riffs on like Phantom Menace and The Matrix and like stuff that was like
Those are never dated.
the cool things to reference back then. They're like, oh, that hasn't aged very well. But at its core, you see the origin of like what Edgar Wright's career as a writer director, and really kind of like what Simon Pegg and Nick Frost's careers as actors and comedians and everything like are going to be. And it really does have a heart at the center of it. It's about these two people who pose as a couple to get an apartment that says it's for couples only. You also just see these names. If you're a fan of British comedy, these faces just kind of cycle in and out. You'll see a lot of the jokes that they would later use in other movies pop up for the first time in this series. So, like I said, dated references aside, I think it holds up just as a compelling story and a fun story with these characters. It's funny. It's very much like watching a home movie of Edgar Wright's later movies. And just the references and that's where that came from. This, and plus you don't see like things with like 2001: A Space Odyssey references, even in the comedy world, that often. I like it. I think it's fun. I think probably the bigger fan you are of Edgar Wright or Simon Pegg, the more you're gonna be a fan of this. But I also think it's just very interesting to kind of watch it and dissect it and see like, I see that part from Baby Driver came from this. This part from Shaun of the Dead came from that. I think it's a really fun watch and just entertaining in general. So, Spaced, check it out.
It's a good show. It is really cool. Like, I mean, it is watching Edgar Wright figure out how he's gonna be
A filmmaker.
Edgar Wright, yeah, I was gonna be a filmmaker. There's I remember the first time I watched through it, you're kind of going through episodes and you're like, okay, we're kind of feeling it. And then they did like a full-on zombie parody episode. And that's the one where it just, how he moves the camera and stuff like that just like really, really clicked in for me. And I was like, oh,
you
this
see
is so
him
cool.
grow as the show goes, because the first couple you're like, oh, okay, and then they'll do some that are just like, well, that's just kind of a parody, and then they'll do like a full-blown thing like, oh, wow, like there's a paintball episode that's great.
Sounds like Community.
It in a way, I mean, it has shades of that kind of young, like, they have finger gun fights and the shades of the ridiculous. But yeah, there's a whole, they go out and play paintball and it becomes this extended war montage, kind of metaphor. And
I got to give it another shot because I remember it being recommended to me, and it was like, it's a really nerdy show. There's lots of nerd references. It's called Spaced. And then I watched it, and I was like, this isn't science fiction at all. Seriously, I was just assuming it was going to be that because there's some other British comedy that's like a Star Trek parody.
Doctor Who.
No.
The Mighty Boosh?
No, someone will remind me. But I was confusing the two of them, and I was just like, oh, this is the real world next. So I got to give that another shot.
Yeah. Again, it takes a couple for me when I was watching. It took a couple for me to get into it and just be like, I don't know. But he gets more confident, and they get more like every television show ever.
Sitcom,
it takes 2 or 3 episodes to really get into the meat of it for everyone to really start banging off each other in the right ways and really click. So
there's I remember reading a thing with Simon Pegg. They were doing like an interview or a reunion like special like at the building.
Red Dwarf.
That's the one.
Oh,
Yeah. Just Hal reacted to you. Yeah. But
Rowan Atkinson?
on a break, they no, that's
Blackadder.
That's Blackadder. That's a different color British thing. On a break, Simon Pegg glanced out the window and noticed that some fans had just walked up to the building to take pictures and stuff like that, not knowing anyone was in there. So the 2 leads, Simon popped out front. We're like, "Can you get off our lawn?"
Nice.
And like just freaked him out. And that's a sweet little story. Yeah. Max, this better be a real sweet, nice pick.
It's not that sweet. Have you guys seen Jim and Andy on Netflix?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool. That.
All right. Moving on.
So this is about when I feel like this is like really popular, but if you haven't seen it, if it's like been popping up on your Netflix thing, you should check it out. It's about when Jim Carrey was playing Andy Kaufman in Man on the Moon and just went super into character and just stayed as Andy Kaufman during the whole shooting of the movie and drove everyone crazy and was just like acting like a maniac and like he wouldn't respond to Jim and you had to talk to him as Andy, and then he was also doing
Tony Clifton
and like going to the Playboy Mansion as Tony Clifton, and like it's just and then it's him like talking about how he lost himself and he doesn't know who he is, and he's just been an actor so long he doesn't know what his actual personality is, and it's interesting.
Yeah, there's some amazing moments in that when he visits like Andy Kaufman's family, and they're like, "Oh, it's like Andy's back," and like they're talking to him like it's Andy.
They're like into
have, like,
it.
It's closure for their dead son.
It's
really
weird.
It's
strange.
really weird and strange.
And then the director who recently passed, Milos Forman, when like Jim Carrey, they have like a meeting, and it's like, "Look, do you want the full Andy Kaufman or do you want Jim Carrey?" He's like, "No, I need Andy."
Like, isn't he also? He's like, "Please tell Jim that he needs to do this," but he's talking to Jim and saying like, "Please tell Jim."
It gets so weird, and like, there's so many levels to it because then you have Jim Carrey also narrating the thing and
looking back on it,
and like it's weird because Jim doesn't come off very well in that movie. He seems like
extraordinary.
Well, you even have
he's very obnoxious. Everybody hates him.
Yeah, I would be miserable on that side.
Well, you have Jerry Lawler, they're playing himself, and him and Andy were friends, and it's interesting that on one hand you have this guy who's like going deep method into Andy Kaufman, and you have Jerry Lawler like, this wasn't what he was like at all. Like he wasn't a dick. Like he was a nice dude. We were friends. So it's really bizarre.
Well, there's that thing that Andy Kaufman does where he's like, he wants to push you as far as he can. It's like, where's the edge of comedy, like and being annoying? And I think like
Jim Carrey's doing that too.
Yeah.
But it's that's definitely one you watch and then you maybe take a walk.
Yeah.
Or because there's just a lot to it.
I just found it fascinating. It's like this guy is like so like separated from his identity, and you can't. I don't know. I'm like worried about Jim Carrey, you guys.
A little bit. It's a sweet beard though.
Yeah.
Sick beard.
Real sick beard. Spencer, what are you checking us out on?
All right, let's head over to Amazon Prime. What, yeah, let me build it up, Billy. All right, put that away. All right.
Let's do it again.
Let's head over to Amazon Prime.
All right.
Not just for ordering toilet paper when you're too lazy to walk to the corner to buy any, because it'll be there in 2 days. That's the Prime guarantee.
You just don't have to poop for 2 days.
Yeah,
and
you
you're
guys know Taika Waititi.
Yes.
You guys probably already know this movie, not just because it was just shown, because it's pretty popular, but I didn't know that this was streaming for free on Amazon Prime. Bring it up. It's What We Do in the Shadows.
good. Yeah.
Nice.
Now, it's a vampire mockumentary, and I know vampires are played out and mockumentaries are played out, but for some reason, this just works, baby. This is one of the funnier movies that came out that entire year. Taika's amazing. The whole cast is incredible. They breathe new life into both of those genres. And, I mean, it's probably the funniest movie you can watch for free.
I'm not going
I'm
to
saying
argue.
it. Yeah.
I'm
Pretty good.
absolutely not going to argue with you.
Yeah, I mean, there's not too much to say about it. It's like the personal lives of 3 or 4, if you count the guy in the basement, vampire roommates who are struggling
Flatmates.
to live in the real world. You should definitely watch it before the sequel comes out. Werewolves?
Werewolves.
Werewolves? About the werewolf pack?
Werewolves.
And there's a series coming out, right?
I don't know.
I believe.
That sounds good.
It's just several things that supposedly are in development.
So yeah, if you're a
Motion.
fan of New Zealand comedy, which in my experience, and probably for most of the world, is Flight of the Conchords.
Yeah.
Well, that dude's
And
in
then
it,
the
right?
other
Yeah.
things.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is very
Clements is in it.
Yeah,
Jermaine's in it.
Jermaine's in it.
Yeah.
So it's this movie. It's Flight of the Conchords. I'm sure there's plenty of New Zealand comedy. Don't at me. But if you like stuff like that, this is hilarious. You really can't go wrong.
Yeah, no, and I'm going to continue the Jermaine Clement love train with the first season of Legion on Hulu. This is an awesome show. Jermaine Clement's in it. He's great. This is my favorite X-Men thing that's ever been on a screen before outside the animated series. It is just a big mind trip. It's super weird. It's the guy that made Fargo just pushing as far as he can go until someone tells him not to.
Is that intentional?
Yeah, I think, yeah.
No, he pushing as far as he could go. The guy from
Fargo. No, I speak in rhyming couplets at all times. Thank you for finally
just
derailing
derailing
my
my
my guy from the first Punisher movie impression. But no, this is such a cool show. If you didn't like Gifted, or if you didn't like I don't know, Mutant X, what other crappy X-Men shows have been on TV? There's been a bunch.
There's the Inhumans. There's the Runaways.
Yeah,
there's
if you don't like any of this stuff, or if superhero TV is just not for you, don't discount this show. This is a show made by a master craftsman and one of the best guys working on TV, doing a show about a crazy telepath. You can take all the X-Men stuff out of it. Every episode, without hyperbole, has shown me something I've never seen on a screen before. It's an awesome show. So after you've relaxed and gotten high with my first one, had a warm feeling with the second one, you can either have your
out the
mind,
hard stuff.
Yeah, really break out the hard stuff, man. I'm trying to tell a story with my festival of shows. Yep, that's my pick. Is first season of Legion's on there.
It's a lot of
On,
TV.
Hulu.
to watch.
It is.
Yep.
Yeah.
You have to watch all of it today.
Yep.
Yes.
Catch up.
Yeah, your mission is to burn out your brain.
which is Memorial Day.
Yeah. So that's the picks, you guys. Happy Memorial Day. Let us know in the comments if you checked any of these out, and let us know if you liked them or not. We'll see you tomorrow.
Max, anything to plug?
Yeah, I'm gonna be probably not on the show again.
But they can follow you at.
Oh, at Max Dionne.
There you go.
On Twitter.
Heck yeah.
Nice. Yeah.
Heck yeah, man. Yeah, your weird comments about us now will fly under the radar no longer.
Guys, Solo was so good. Probably the best Star Wars movie.
I disagree. I think.
I think it made a particular amount of money. You guys, we'll see you tomorrow. Happy Memorial Day. Bye.
Another.